Hi ladies, it's Raquel here. Today I am excited to share with you a really unique Tzitzit tying tutorial. Although our end goal is going to be on the more elaborate spectrum of Tzitzit, along the way I am going to show you two other different kinds of Tzitzit that are a little bit less elaborate and a little bit easier to do. So you can choose which of these variations you would like to choose and for what different contexts. While God commands us in Numbers 15 to wear Tzitzit, there are many traditions when it comes to how to tie Tzitzit. But a common tradition is to tie your Tzitzit so that the number of knots, the number of wraps within your knots, correlate to YHVH, which is the name of God. But today, I'm going to show you how to take that tradition just a little bit further. I'm going to show you how to tie your Tzitzit so you can actually read the Hebrew letters Yod, He, Vav, and He, and to literally have His name tied within your Tzitzit. If that just sounds totally awesome, please give this video a thumbs up. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to tie these Tzitzit and exactly how I do it. But before we get into that, I just want to mention that if you desire to have Tzitzit like these, but for whatever reason you can't tie Tzitzit for yourself, or maybe you want to just get some immediately as you're learning yourself, or maybe you just want to support my channel, then I will have a link in the description box to my Etsy shop, and you can purchase a set my husband and I will personally tie for you. So that link is in the description box, as are the timestamps for this video in case you need to rewatch it multiple times to tie your own. So let's get into tying these Tzitzit, and let's start with our materials. For making these Tzitzit, you're going to need whatever thread of your choice. Some people prefer 100% cotton embroidery floss. I've used hemp cord before. However, recently I've been using Nano Paracord, and I'm finding it's really durable for the lifestyle that I have, the farming and the gardening that I do, and really durable with my children's play and even going into the wash. Although I don't recommend washing your Tzitzit in the wash machine. But if you forget, the Nano Paracord has been holding up really well and resisting fraying. Now, of this thread, you're going to need two colors. One color that fits your understanding of the Tehelet in Scripture, the blue color that's indicated in Scripture, and that's going to be your primary color in the Tzitzit I'm going to show you how to make today. And then you'll need a second color of your choice for the base strands, which are going to be the color of the Hebrew letters. I'm going to be using white as my base strand and then a blue for my Tehelet. Next, you'll need scissors for cutting the thread and trimming the finished Tzitzit. And finally, I recommend tape for keeping the Tzitzit in place as you tie. Clear tape does a decent job. However, I really prefer to use duct tape. And let's get started. The first step is to measure out your strands. You need 6 base strands that are about 30 to 36 inches, so 6 of the white strands for me. And I am measuring loosely from my chin to the tip of my finger, which comes out to about 34 inches. I recommend making your strands no shorter than 30 inches because it can be difficult to tie that last knot when the strands are too short, and it's always better to have a little extra thread you can trim off than not having enough thread to finish your Tzitzit. Here you see that I measured the first strand and then use it as the ruler for my other strands. You can do that, or you can continue to measure each strand from your chin to your fingertip, or even use a measuring tape for each strand. However you measure out your strands, you just want 6 base strands that are about 30 to 36 inches long. Once I have measured out my 6 base strands, I'm going to measure out my blue thread. I need only one blue strand, however, it will be twice as long as my base strands. So I simply measure from my chin to my fingertip, but instead of cutting it there, I pull the thread once more from my chin to my fingertip and then cut. You could also measure your blue thread from fingertip to fingertip with your arms extended. The second step is to braid the loop at the top of our Tzitzit that will attach to our clothing. So set the blue strand aside and pick up the base strands. We're going to find the middle of the strands. So we want to line up the ends on one side and then fold the strands in half. Now that I've found where the middle of my base strands is, I'm going to tape my base strands at the middle to the table. I straighten out my pieces so that none are overlapping the other, and then divide the 6 strands into 3 groups of 2. I begin to braid the 3 groups, which is essentially just moving the middle group to alternating sides. To keep this video shorter, I'm not going to explain how to braid, but I am sure that there are many braiding tutorials on YouTube. I braid about 2 inches down so that when I fold the braid in half, it's about a 1-inch loop. Depending on how you attach your tzitzit, you may prefer to braid 3 or 4 inches down so that your loop is larger. If you don't know what you prefer, I suggest braiding 4 inches down for a larger loop, because having a larger loop doesn't do any harm, but again, having too small of a loop may mean you can't attach it as you would like. Once you've finished braiding your loop, pinch the strands where the braid begins and ends to keep it from unraveling, pull up your tape, and tape the braided loop back to the table as shown. To secure the braided loop and to introduce our blue strand, I'm going to tie a simple knot at the base of my tape. Place the blue strand under the white strands near the tape, line up the ends of the blue strand to find the center, then, just like when tying your shoes, cross the 2 blue strands, bring the blue strand on top through the hole, and cinch tight. Our braided loop is now secure, and we are ready for step 3, which is to tie our first set of blue knots. Our blue knots are the main knots that we'll be using throughout this tzitzit tying process. I'm going to explain it to you slowly. However, I'm going to be showing you several times, and you can rewatch this portion of the tutorial as many times as you need to get it down. So, with your 2 blue strands on either side of your white base strands, place the blue strand on your right over your base strands to form a capital letter D. Then, put your blue strand on the left on top of it. Next, reach through the top of your D on the right to grab that left blue strand and bring it under and through the loop of the D and cinch tight. Now we're going to do the same knot, but beginning on the left side. With your 2 blue strands on either side of your white base strands, place the blue strand on your left over your base strands to form a backwards capital letter D. Then put your blue strand on the right on top of it. Next, reach through the top of your backward D on the left to grab that right blue strand and bring it under and through the loop of the backward D and cinch tight. We're going to do blue knots like this for a total of 12 knots, alternating from right to left, right to left, right to left. Once you have reached your 12th blue knot, you gather all your blue and white strands together and knot them all together as shown. Wrap the strands to create a loop passing underneath itself, then pull the tail through the loop and tighten this knot just under your blue knots. Then tighten and straighten up your knot by pulling each strand individually. You can see here that we have a very basic tassel or tzitzit and would only need to make 3 more and trim the ends to the length we want to be finished. I like to use a basic tzitzit like this for my babies and toddlers because they're super quick and can be made quite short. But let's move on to step number 4, which is tying in the Hebrew lettering for God's name. So the first thing I'm going to do is lift up my tape and move the tzitzit just an inch or so up so that I'm working just off the table. I'll also take more tape to tape down the section I just did. I find this helps my end product to be straighter and neater. I'm going to again make 12 blue knots, but with a slight variation when I get to knot number 4, which I'll explain. So separate my blue strands to be on either side of the white base strands, and starting on the right, tie a blue knot, and use your finger to push that tie right up to the big knot we just made if needed. Then alternate to the left side for knot number 2. And then the right side for knot number 3. Now that I'm at knot number 4 on the left, I have a pattern beside me that shows my 12 knots. Knot number 1 on the right, knot number 2 on the left, knot number 3 on the right, and when I come to knot number 4, I see 2 dots in the middle. That means I need to lift 2 white base strands out of the way before I tie knot number 4. So let's do that. Straighten out your white base strands so that you can find 2 front strands that are in the middle beside one another. Simply lift them up and out of the way, and then tie blue knot number 4 on the left as normal. When we consult our pattern for knot number 5, it shows only 1 dot on the right. The same for blue knot number 6. So that means only the white strand on the right should still be lifted out of the way before I tie blue knots number 5 and number 6. So back to my tzitzit, I bring the white strand on the left back to the other base strands, but I keep the white strand on the right still up and out of the way and tie blue knot number 5 on the right as normal. Then, with the white strand still out, I tie blue knot number 6 on the left as normal. Going back to the pattern, I read that knots number 7 through 12 do not have any dots, and so no white strands need to be lifted out of the base strands. Before I tie blue knot number 7 on the right, I bring the white strand back down to the other base strands, and you can already see a little Hebrew yod in the tzitzit. So tie as normal blue knot number 7 through blue knot number 12. At this point, you have the choice to gather all the strands together and knot them as shown and as we did once already, or you could omit the knots between each letter and start the next set of 12 blue knots as I did on this tzitzit. I will omit the larger knots when I still want the yod hey vav hey tied in, but I want a shorter tzitzit. I did this for my son, but I could also see this being used at the bottom corners of midi skirts, for example. For this tzitzit tutorial, you can see I did do a larger knot. And here's what our yod section looks like finished. So let's look at our pattern for hay. Notice that blue knots number 1 through 3 are normal, but when we get to blue knot number 4 on the left, we need to lift out 4 white strands. Let's do that. I'm going to separate my blue strands so that they're on either side of the white base strands. And then starting on the right, knot number 1, knot number 2, knot number 3, and now that I'm at knot number 4, I'm going to again straighten out these white strands and choose 4 white strands at the front that are all beside one another and lift them up and out of the way and tie blue knot number 4 as normal. My pattern shows for knot number 5 that I only need 1 right strand to remain lifted. So I'll place the 3 white strands on the left back with the other base strands, keeping the 1 white strand on the right lifted out of the way, and tie my knot number 5 on the right as normal. Pattern next shows that knots number 6, number 7, number 8, and number 9 have 2 white strands lifted out, 1 white strand on the left, and then the same white strand on the right. So I'll try to find that front left strand that I had lifted earlier to lift out again for these next few knots. And with the white strand on the left and a white strand on the right being lifted out of the way, we can tie knots number 6 through number 9 as normal. Knots number 10 through 12 do not have any strands lifted out, so we'll lower our 2 white strands back to the base strands and tie as normal. I recommend straightening out the hay strands when you finish your 12 knots. Then gather all the strands together for one large knot and pull each strand individually to tighten and straighten it. And so now we have a yod and we have a hey, halfway through God's name. Again, lift up the tape and the tzitzit and move it further up on the table. And I like to tape down the newest section I finished to help keep the tzitzit straight. You're probably starting to get the hang of this now. To start the next set of 12 blue knots, we need to separate our blue strands so that they're on either side of the white base strands, and we need to consult our pattern. For Vav, our pattern shows normal ties for knots number 1 through 3. At knot number 4, we'll lift out 2 white strands in the middle, and then at knots number 5 through 9, we'll put the white strand on the left back and keep out only the white strand on the right. At knot number 10, the 1 white strand we still have out will join the base strands, and we'll tie number 10 through 12 as normal. So here we go. Blue knots number 1 through 3 as normal. At knot number 4, lifting out 2 front white strands from the middle. Tying knot number 4. Lowering the left white strand back with the others, tying knots numbers 5 through 9. Lowering the remaining white strand back with the other base strands and tying knots number 10 through 12. Straighten the white vav out if need be, as we did with hay, and then knot all the strands together, tightening each strand individually. How about that, vav? And our final Hebrew letter for God's name is Hey once again. So I separate the blue strands to be on either side of the white base strands, and then I consult my pattern. Knots number 1 through number 3 are normal. When I get to knot number 4, I'll lift out 4 white strands. Let's do that. You'll notice that I use the tape as a weight to hold my strands out of the way, and that's because the strands want to fall back in with the other base strands as you get closer to being finished. But with them back, I can tie blue knot number 4. Next, my pattern shows all the white strands except the one on the far right going back in with the base strands for blue knot number 5. So let's do that and tie knot number 5 with our white strand on the right still out. Knots number 6 through number 9 need 1 white strand on the left and the same white strand on the right to stay out. So I try to find the same left white strand I had lifted out before to lift out again. And when I have my 2 white strands out, I then tie blue knots number 6 through number 9 as normal. When I get to knot number 10, I lowered the 2 white strands back with the base strands and tie knots number 10 through 12, straightening out the white strands that form the hay as needed. Finally, I knot all the strands together, and you can see that as you get to the end, the thread lengths are shorter, and so it can take a few attempts to knot it. But when the knot is made, very importantly, pull to tighten each strand individually. Remove the tape, and we have our first Tzitzit with YHVH tied in. Isn't that so neat? When you have made all 4 Tzitzit, that's when I suggest cutting the remaining fringes at the desired length so that you can get as even of a cut as possible. If you cut a Tzitzit before the others are made, you risk cutting it way too short. So there you have it, a Tzitzit tying tutorial where you actually tie in YHVH, God's name, plus a couple of other variations. A friend taught me how to tie Tzitzit this way, and so now I am just so happy to share with you how to tie Tzitzit in this way also. I will say it is a commitment to tie Tzitzit this way. It takes me about 2 hours to tie a set of 4 Tzitzit, and I definitely understand why for time or for quantity needed, joint issues and the like, why someone may seek out pre-made Tzitzit over tying their own. So that is why I offer Tzitzit sets in my Etsy shop using the Nano Paracord. However, if you would like to give it a try, I have shown you exactly how to do it in this tutorial. In this video, I have shared the tutorial for how to tie Tzitzit. However, if you're wondering what Tzitzit are and why we wear them, why I as a woman wear them and also have them for my children to wear, if you're wondering how I attach them to my clothing, what colors the thread should be, and other such questions, then stay tuned because in the next video about Tzitzit, I will be talking everything Tzitzit and answering your questions as well. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you found this tutorial clear and helpful. Please give it a thumbs up if you did and share this video with your Tzitzit tying friends. Until next time, I pray that Yahweh would bless you and keep you. I'll talk with you later. Goodbye.